Hello, Stella Griffins. Happy spring. We are going to talk a little bit about how to use some of the universal and designated supports for the testing that you're going to be doing coming up in May. So I'm going to show you some examples of that, and you're going to get to try it out today. Just a little bit of tinkering and practice, and then you're going to fill out a Google form to be able to say which designated supports really supported you and helped you so that you can do your best on testing. You can see here I'm signed in doing a sixth grade, just a practice test. And on here, I've got the option to do some expanding, right? So if it's looking like you want to be able to just read this part, you can expand and scroll down. You also have the ability to look at the glossary. So if you see these little gray lines above and below a word, you can click on that. And that gives you the definition, which is really helpful. Actually, a little dictionary rather. There are also glossaries within this too in English. You have also the option to be able to highlight something. So if you're reading, and say I'm reading in here, and I wouldn't do a whole sentence, but maybe Amos Goldsmith. Okay, that might be an important word from what I'm reading. I'm going to highlight it. Might even, depending on what evidence I'm looking for, I might highlight different colors because maybe one thing is supporting my argument and maybe something is going to be counter to my argument. So I'm going to have different colors for those things, right? In addition, I can also use a line reader. So as I'm reading and I don't want to use my place, I might use that line reader here to be able to keep where I'm going. I can also go ahead and use masking on here. So let's say that this is just too much information, right? Then I can use masking and say, you know what, this whole paragraph here is kind of overwhelming me or not useful. I can put that on there and also take it away. I can also zoom in. So let's say I want to see things a little bit closer. I can zoom in, can zoom back out. I can also use a notepad in here. So actually that's over here. So let's say I'm writing some things down. I would suggest actually that you use the notepad or your own scratch notes rather than the notepad, because the notepad itself right here, after I get through this segment, which looks like it goes through number 8, it's going to disappear. And maybe if I'm trying to go back to things, I lose that. Or if I'm signed out for 20 minutes or longer, then it's going to disappear. So highly suggest just writing it down on your scratch paper, because your teachers are going to collect that and it can always be given back to you, right? So super important. There's also the text-to-speech feature in here. And so in a minute, I'll show you how to be able to use that. Okay, so you're going to be able to actually have the questions and items read to you. I can go here and say, it's going to read this. Okay, I can pause it, right? So it read it aloud to me. It sounds kind of robotic. There are 3 options. We think that the voice of the woman is actually a little bit easier to hear. And then also, you can have the question spoken to you here in this section too. Now, keep in mind that reading the full passage, that is actually an accommodation. So our students, for the reading test, you're not going to be able to have that unless that is particular to you requiring it as an accommodation. But all of our kids can have access to hearing the questions spoken aloud as well as the question items. I also want to note that I now don't have the masking option here. So that is something where if you like masking, then we'll have to add that in for you. If it doesn't seem helpful, then it's something that we don't need you to have access to. I can also mark items for review. So let's say I went through and I wasn't quite sure about my answer. I can have that up, and then before submitting, it'll remind me, oh yeah, go back and check this, right? In addition, I can also highlight some of the questions. Say I'm like, oh, maybe these 2, not quite sure, right? And I can put those in. That's also selecting it, right? but I can also highlight certain sections when available. I go on to this section, and that was actually choosing it, 2 purple ones, but you can highlight in certain sections. Here, oh, look, this is handy. This is telling me, oh, this is a definition. Okay, helpful. However, I can also strike through. So let's say, I don't think that it's A that's best summarizing this, and I don't think it's B, right? That can help me to evaluate and narrow down which ones I think are the correct answer, especially if I then go and mark it for review. Can go back and double check and make sure I still think that it's true after I've gone through and reread the text a few times too. Again, giving me the option to speak the question as well as to speak the options. So for this section, I'm now on the math CAT, computer adaptive test. And as I'm seeing here, there's a nice little grid. And then here I see these lines again. This time I've enabled the glossary feature to have it in Spanish. There are other languages available as well. If that is something that helps me as a student, not something that's going to distract me like, oh, that's interesting that that's the meaning. No, this is so I can be like, okay, yes, this is also this word in this other language I know very well. So location, ubicación, posición, and I can also hear it played aloud if I want to. And below here, oh, we've got another one here. Enter, escribe, right? So it's telling me what to do. On here, I've got a basic calculator, but then you'll see in other sections, there are more advanced features of calculators that I'll show you in just a moment. Okay, so on here, again, I've got the option to hear and see this in Spanish. Let's hear it out loud.
Considera, piensa.
Okay. And then here, it gives me a more complex calculator, and sometimes it might not be exactly easy to use right away. So one thing that you do need to know is that when you want to write in a fraction, you can use this right here. So you click that first, and let's say I want to say 3/4, 3, and then I put 4. Oh no, that's not the right place. 3, and then I want to go click on here, 4. All right, so that gives me 3/4. Okay. I can also undo these things, right? And then here I can also exponent. So let's say I do 2 to the third, 2, and then I push this right here, and it gives me 2 to the third, right? That might not be pertinent to this question, right? But say I want to do, 2 plus, and then, oh, I need to use something that's in parentheses. I use the open parenth, and I put 2a minus b, and then I can close it out by clicking over here, right? And then it gives me that. So knowing how to use these little features down here comes in handy too. This little asterisk actually means multiply, right? So that's a feature that you also should just keep in mind. To review quite a couple of these features, that calculator feature, it really just only pops up for some questions. So remember, everything's not going to have a calculator, and also everything is not going to have a translation. The translation is really just for the math questions. So keep that in mind, that none of your reading or ELA is going to have the translation into any other languages. The strike through feature is just for multiple choice questions. So you can't really do that on any other section of the test or types of questions in the test. And then also, unfortunately, you can't annotate within the text, which I wish you could, but you can't. So really, you're going to be wanting to use that scratch paper, so then that way you can get all that down. And remember, you're only going to use this translation if it is not going to distract you. These multiple features can sometimes feel a little overwhelming as you're trying to do them. So it could be that less is more, especially if you feel like it might make you a little bit anxious about taking the test. Now I want to show you some other features that are specifically available within the performance task for ELA. One thing is that now you've got the dictionary option here. So let's say you're reading this here and it's about the Grand Canyon and you're like, I don't really know what a canyon is. And so you're just going to look up canyon and then you click dictionary. And then it's got, I guess, 7 entries found. Then you click on it and you can scroll down and see, oh, okay, a deep, narrow valley with steep sides and often a stream flowing through it. Oh, interesting. That sounds beautiful, right? And then let's say that you're actually starting to write your essay and you want like more variety in some of your words. And say you've already said the word furthermore, or you've said the word however. You want a different word for that. Okay, let's say thesaurus. What's another word for however? Okay, howbeit, nevertheless. Oh, that's a good one. Notwithstanding, still, though, yet, right? This is giving you some options for being able to add variety to what you're writing. And what's really great too is that actually, if you don't want to use this one, we've actually got a thesaurus right here that you can use that will be available in your classrooms. And we've also got dictionaries. So you can use the physical ones if you feel like that will help you, but also you've got this up here just in this dictionary section. I also want to point out, let's say I'm starting to write and I'm like, I type these things right. Well, you've got all of these nice little features here. So one of them is to remove any formatting. So let's say like I highlight or I bold this because I'm like, I don't remember if that's spelled correctly. I want to go back to it. Um, and let's say that, I'm writing already. Okay, let's see how this looks. Let me check the spelling. Oh, I spelled canyon wrong. Recommended canyon. Okay, I can fix that. All right, great. Now I can take that off and go back. And so using that, you don't have to spell check single thing, but it helps to make it so that the person reading, especially after you've written the whole thing, you can make sure that most of it is spelled correctly. So what your meaning is actually understood. Another thing that you can do is, let's say, oh, I want to take off this bold because that's not actually important. I can go remove format, and then now that's gone. Another thing that I can do is, let's say I want to hear it,
Hiking in the Grand Canyon would be a great experience.
right? So then I put that in there. This insert symbol, you're likely not going to need, but it does exist. Then I also want to just point out for you guys too, besides the bold, right, italicize, all these things, you can do that in here. Besides that, there is also a little tutorial section here. It's kind of a long video. So if during the time where in a few minutes you're playing around with it, you want to do the item tutorial, you can do that. But when you're test taking, you already want to know all this stuff, which is why we're making this video right now. There are some additional supports that I want to point out to you guys. So if you are in 8th grade and you're taking the science test, you're going to have the periodic table available to you. They'll be printed out for you. There will also be some other charts and graphs and different tools that might pop up as you're taking the test. Think of it like those little science simulators that you guys sometimes do on the computer. So you use those features in a similar way that you would in class. There's also for the science test, hundreds number table, and there's also the multiplication table that can be used just for that. Some students may also have access to these features as a part of their accommodations. I believe that the hundreds number table is available to all students. This also is available if you are looking for a Spanish-English dictionary. We can provide that for students separately. So now you guys are going to get to tinker with some things online, but before you do that, I want to show you where you're going to go to. So you're going to go to CAASPP.org. You're not going to sign into your regular login because it's not going to allow you to play with some of the features that we're talking about here. So you're going to go to CAASPP.org, CAASPP, and then you're going to click on Practice and Training Tests. From here, it says if you're a student, right, you're going to click on this green button here. Then once you're in, you're just gonna sign in as a guest user. We're not gonna practice the signing in session. We're not gonna record any of this. Really, this is just for you to get used to some of the features. So here you're gonna click sign in, and you'll pick your grade level. And let's say I'm going with 6th grade. For now, you guys are just gonna do training test because that's gonna show you most of the features here. And then here's where you're going to toggle and play with some of this, right? So you're likely going to leave most of this top stuff. But then here, you have some options for color contrast. So you can see what each of these looks like, black on green, right? All these different colors that you can play with. Then we really want to make sure that you're not getting distracted by this stuff. If it's going to hurt your eyes by the time you've taken your last test, which can take some days, I would just leave it at regular, like this, black and white. In addition, you can also turn the masking on to be able to play with it. But if you find the masking is too much once you do play with it, we can have that feature not be on. And then the mouse pointer, let's say that sometimes you struggle to see the white pointer here. You could do something like just a large white one, or maybe you want an extra large white or an extra large red one so that you can see it in contrast, right? Again, keep in mind the color contrast of what you're using, as well as how that's gonna affect your eyes and your ability to really focus as you're taking your test. And then here you can play with, the glossary is going to be there. And then when you go to the math one, you'll actually also be able to turn on the features that are about the language, right? On here too, text to speech. Yes, you're going to add stimulus and item. For passages, that's only an accommodation for certain students, but students can be able to stimulus an item. So you're going to turn that on too to be able to play with those features. Once you hit select, you're going to do, right, confirm that sound. And you're also going to confirm this sound here. You can go through and which person's voice you like better. The woman's voice is Zyra. Maybe you prefer Zyra. And then you'll continue and it'll take you to the test again. You're not taking this like it's a test. What you're just going to do is see how the features feel for you, okay? Once you've gone through this practice test, or the training test rather, you're going to go to the practice test. Again, signing in as a guest, select your grade. And then in order to be able to see some of those math features, you're going to click here if you really want to explore the language part, right? The language supports. So here, look, you can add different glossaries, Spanish and English, for example. And then you would test that out, right? You click select, and then you go through as you normally would. After you've played with that feature, then if you have time, you're also going to again, select your grade and you're going to go to the ELA math performance task because that's going to give you that other set of features where you can check, do the dictionary check and all of that.